Have we mistaken looking younger for living better? Tonight, we revisit famous faces that once felt like family, not to shame them, but to ask a harder question. When fame, fear, and endless mirrors press on a person for decades, what can the search for perfection quietly take away? These stories are about beauty, yes, but also identity, pressure, regret, and dignity. Many Americans over 60 know matters far more than a flawless photograph in later quiet years. Micheal Jackson. If one name must come first, it is Micheal Jackson. Because America did not simply watch him perform, America watched him grow up. Millions remember the bright, gifted boy leading the Jackson 5, then the unmatched artist who gave the world Thriller, Billie Jean, and the Moonwalk. His talent remains beyond argument, but his changing appearance became one of the most painful public conversations in modern entertainment. In the original story, the claim of more than 100 procedures is too strong to present as fact. What can be said responsibly is that Jackson admitted to nose surgeries and a chin cleft, while he denied many other rumors. His lighter skin was also not simply vanity. Vitiligo, a real loss of skin pigment, was later confirmed. That distinction matters. Still, the emotional truth remains powerful. Here was a man adored by the world, yet often described as uncomfortable with the face looking back at him. Fame did not protect him from childhood wounds, public ridicule, or loneliness. For older viewers, his story may feel less like celebrity gossip and more like a family memory that never stopped hurting. Behind the glove, the fedora, and the impossible dance steps was a human being trying to survive impossible attention. His transformation reminds us that applause can fill stadiums, but it cannot heal every private ache. The question is not whether Micheal was great. He was. The question is how much pressure one's soul can carry before the mirror becomes a place of sorrow. And that is why his legacy still asks us to choose compassion before judgment every single time. Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell belongs near the top because many Americans invited him into their living rooms for years. On American Idol and America's Got Talent, he was the judge with the sharp tongue, the raised eyebrow, and the confidence to say what others would not. That familiar face became part of television history. Then, as he later acknowledged, cosmetic injectables went too far. The original script says his young son burst into tears, but the more careful correction is that Eric's reaction, described as shock and laughter, made Cowell realize he no longer recognized himself in the same way. That moment is the emotional center of the story. For a parent, especially one later in life, nothing cuts deeper than seeing your child react to a face that should feel safe and familiar. Cowell eventually said he stepped away from fillers and focused more on health, water, diet, and simply looking like himself again. That change gives this story a little more hope than some of the others. It is not just a warning about vanity, it is also proof that a person can pause, reassess, and choose a better road. For viewers over 60, Simon's lesson is simple but striking. The lines on a face are not failures. They are evidence. They show laughter, worry, hard work, disappointment, and love. If chasing youth costs the face your family knows, the bargain is too expensive. Sometimes the bravest makeover is letting time leave its honest signature. In the end, recognition from loved ones may matter more than approval from cameras, critics, or strangers online. That is wisdom hard-earned. Linda Evangelista. Linda Evangelista deserves early attention because her story speaks directly to today's promise of easy, non-invasive beauty. In the 1990s, she was not merely a model, she was one of the supermodels, a woman whose face and walk defined an entire fashion era. Older viewers remember when magazines, department stores, and runway specials treated her like the very picture of glamour. Years later, she chose cool sculpting, a fat-freezing treatment marketed as a simpler path to refinement. According to her own legal claims, the result was the opposite of what she expected. She developed paradoxical adipose hyperplasia, often shortened to PAH, a rare condition in which treated fat cells grow instead of shrink. The original text misspelled this condition, so the corrected medical term matters. Linda said the experience left her altered, ashamed, and away from the public eye for years. What makes her story so unsettling is that she did not appear to be chasing shock value. She was seeking maintenance, the kind of quiet improvement many people are sold every day. Yet the price became emotional, physical, and deeply personal. For Americans over 60, her ordeal raises a practical question. How many procedures are promoted as gentle, quick, and safe before anyone explains the rare but real risks? Linda's courage is in speaking after silence. Her story reminds us that elegance is not created by machines. Real grace includes scars, survival, and the right to be seen without apology. Her return to fashion made the warning stronger because dignity came not from perfection, but from telling the truth and stepping forward again with courage intact. Donatella Versace. Donatella Versace belongs high in this order because fashion has always sold the dream of control. After the painful loss of her brother Gianni, she helped carry Versace into a new era of luxury, celebrity, and red carpet power. Her professional influence is real, and it should not be reduced to commentary about her face. But the public discussion around her appearance became impossible to ignore. The original script states cosmetic surgery as certainty. The corrected version must be more careful because Donatella has not publicly confirmed specific procedures. What we can say is that fans, tabloids, and cosmetic experts have long speculated about noticeable changes, especially around the lips, skin texture, and overall facial tightness. For an older American audience, the lesson is not to mock a woman who survived grief and led a global brand. The lesson is to question an industry that tells women, even powerful women, that aging naturally is somehow a professional risk. Donatella's story sits at the crossing point of beauty, money, grief, and expectation. She built a world where image matters, then became trapped inside the world's judgment of her own image. That is a lonely place to stand. If her face has changed, the more important question is why so many women feel they must change before the world changes how it sees them. Her legacy should include fashion leadership, but also a warning. Perfection is a moving target, and chasing it can make even luxury feel like pressure. At any age, beauty deserves room to breathe, soften, and remain unmistakably human, not permanently frozen under public demand or fear. Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke comes next because his transformation was not simply about vanity. It began with damage, risk, and regret. In the 1980s, he carried a rough, magnetic kind of American masculinity. Films such as 9½ Weeks and Angel Heart made him a screen presence people remembered. Then he stepped away from acting and returned to boxing, a sport that tested him physically and left marks that fame could not hide. Rourke later said many of his surgeries were meant to repair injuries from the ring, including damage to his nose and cheekbone. He also admitted that he chose the wrong person to put his face back together. That sentence carries more weight than any insult ever could. It is the sound of a man looking back and understanding how one decision can lead to another, then another, until the original face feels far away. For older viewers, Mickey's story touches something familiar. The body keeps score. Every fall, fight, illness, surgery, and recovery becomes part of our history. But when repair is rushed, poorly guided, or mixed with Hollywood pressure, healing can become another wound. Rourke's later comeback in The Wrestler proved that talent can survive a changed face. Still, his journey asks a painful question. If your identity has been built on rugged beauty, what happens when both the industry and the mirror stop recognizing you? His story is not about ridicule. It is about consequences, courage, and the fragile hope of rebuilding after choices that cannot be fully undone. In that sense, his weathered face still tells a very human story, honestly. Jocelyn Wildenstein. Jocelyn Wildenstein became one of the most recognizable cautionary figures in tabloid history, which is why her story still holds attention. For decades, she was called Catwoman, a nickname that reduced a complicated person to a single shocking image. The original script presents her transformation as a confirmed attempt to keep her husband by resembling exotic cats. The corrected wording should be more careful. Reports connected her feline look to her former husband's love of big cats, but she denied that she changed her face for that reason and even disputed parts of the surgery narrative. Still, the public record around her life shows a woman surrounded by wealth, spectacle, divorce, and relentless scrutiny. She moved through the highest circles of society, yet the conversation around her became almost entirely about appearance. For older viewers, this is a sobering reminder of how quickly glamour can become a cage. When a face becomes a headline, the person behind it can disappear. Jocelyn's story is not only about cosmetic choices, it is about devotion, insecurity, public cruelty, and the strange way money can magnify private pain. She passed away in Paris at age 84, leaving behind a legacy people still argue over. Some saw excess. Others saw a woman refusing to be shamed. The respectful lesson is clear. Never hand your identity to another person's fantasy, a camera's hunger, or a society that turns human vulnerability into entertainment. At any stage of life, your face should belong to you, not to headlines, former spouses, surgeons, or strangers deciding what your dignity should look like in public every day again. Jessica Alves. Jessica Alves draws attention because her story sits at the intersection of identity, medicine, celebrity, and the modern internet. Earlier in public life, she was widely known as the human Ken doll, after many procedures intended to create a doll-like male image. Later, Jessica transitioned and became publicly associated with a human Barbie persona. That part of her life should be discussed with respect. Gender identity is personal, and it is not the same thing as cosmetic excess. What belongs in this story is the sheer scale of physical alteration and the emotional question behind it. Reports describe dozens of surgeries, major spending, and procedures that included rib removal to narrow the waist. The original script uses a tone that risks sounding judgmental, so this version softens the language while keeping the concern. For Americans over 60, Jessica's path may feel unfamiliar, even startling, because many grew up with firmer ideas about bodies, gender, and aging. But the deeper issue is timeless. How many changes can a person make before the search for self-expression becomes a source of strain? And how does social attention reward more dramatic choices, even when the body carries the cost? Jessica's story asks viewers not to laugh, but to think. In a culture where every image can be edited and every insecurity can be sold a solution, the line between freedom and pressure becomes hard to see. Her journey is a reminder that selfhood deserves compassion, medical caution, and a quiet question. Will this change bring peace, or only another mirror to chase? That question matters more than spectacle today for everyone. If one of these stories surprised you, stay with us, because every chapter reveals a different price of perfection. Which transformation moved you the most, and what do you think real aging with dignity should look like? Share your thoughts below, subscribe for more respectful Hollywood history, and watch the next video, where we uncover another side of fame few people discuss with empathy and context included for everyone.